If you're a founder, you know that fundraising is a big part of the job. What you might not know is that Carta is there to help. Carta's new fundraising suite provides startups of all stages the best tools and support to easily issue safes, accurately forecast dilution, and quickly close funding rounds. Save time, money, and make your next round your best yet. To learn more or to get started, go to carta.com/fundraise. That's carta.com/fundraise.
The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for IKEA Business Network for free today at IKEA.com.
Welcome to Inc.'s For Starters with Alexa Von Tobel. I'm Alexa, a serial entrepreneur myself and founder and managing partner of Inspired Capital, a venture firm that backs fearless founders who are solving some of the biggest challenges facing humanity. Now in our 6th season, we sit down each week with one of the best founders on the planet to hear their story of guts, inspiration, and drive. Let's dive right in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alexa Von Tobel, and this week I'm excited for you to meet Jenny Just, a visionary founder and one of the few self-made female billionaires in the United States. Jenny started her career on the trading floor in Chicago. She co-founded PEAK6 in 1997 with $1.5 million in seed capital as a proprietary options trading firm, and since then has grown it into a multi-billion-dollar financial services and technology giant, housing the next generation of products and service brands, including PEAK6 Capital Management, PEAK6 Strategic Capital, Apex Fintech Solutions, PEAK6 InsurTech, and Zogo. With a true knack for unearthing talent and opportunities, Jenny looks for underfunded and underappreciated sectors to transform into high-growth businesses. Her passion specifically lies in finding opportunities for women to succeed at every table. In 2020, she launched Poker Power with her daughter, Juliette, a woman-led company that teaches poker to all who identify as female and by extension teaches women strategic thinking, capital allocation, and decision-making skills. Jenny's remarkable success has earned her a number of accolades, including being named to Forbes' list of America's richest self-made women, Forbes 50 over 50, and Worth's groundbreaking women. And with that, let's welcome Jenny. Jenny, first, I know I've met you in the past many times. You are absolutely fabulous. I played poker with you. I'm so excited to have you on today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here. And congratulations on the success of this podcast. And of course, your whole history. So
you're amazing. Thanks so much, Jenny. Okay, Jenny, you've had so many ventures throughout your career, but let's start with your firm, PEAK6. Can we just start back to that fateful day in 1997? What was the aha moment? And then how do we end up here, in your own words?
Yeah, it's a long time. So it's funny because there is not really an aha moment. And I know sometimes for people you interview on here, there is, and oftentimes there's not. Our circumstance, myself and my co-founder, Matt Holsizer, our circumstance was because the trading firm we were at did a joint venture with Swiss Bank and eventually was bought by UBS, and they were moving. And we didn't necessarily want to move. Now, we had the opportunity to stay, but we said, well, we just did this thing inside of the bank ourselves. So we actually had the opportunity in our mid-20s to start a department. It was called the Over-the-Counter Equity Derivative Department. And it's basically non-exchange traded equity derivatives. So we had this opportunity and we said, well, we'll just do it again naively. And we're just going to be 2 people in a room somewhere and figure out how to do this very large trading with large entities. I think the beauty of the time was you're not seeing Shark Tank and there's no entrepreneurial programs at schools. And what we didn't know actually kind of helped us. And so we said, well, we're just going to leave. We're going to do it again. Now, weirdly, I had a 1-year-old at the time, so I'm not sure it was the smartest thing. I was the breadwinner in the family. And I'm happy that I had the curiosity and the drive to do it. If I had to do it again today, knowing what people know when they start, I don't know that I would have done it.
That's the only thing, Jenny, that everyone always says. They said, if I ever knew what would be required of me, like, no way I would do this. One of the really interesting things about PEAK6, and you are one of the wealthiest self-made billionaires on the planet, which is so incredible, and one of very few females, which is just absolutely, I mean, on every level, mad respect. And I just think you are a hero. Let's start with your strategy. You, over the time, you bought about 15 companies through PEAK6. I want to know your playbook and your decision making and how you continued to build the business.
Gosh, I wish it was as smart as you make it sound. It's definitely smarter today. So the way I say it is we've started or bought and turned around about 15 companies. I stopped counting because it gets, it sounds cool until it doesn't. Like at some point, that's a little embarrassing because there's a lot of failures in there. And a lot of those failures were there when we were young. And I think what happened, so what we first built was a trading company. And even what we originally were going to build, our plan A, 27 years later, we never built. So really our core, our heart and soul of PEAK6 is a proprietary trading firm, which means we don't have outside capital. And yes, we started with a small amount of family and friends money, but as we built that business, what ends up happening in options trading is it doesn't take a lot of capital to do it. And so as we made money, we got very lucky early on. And the team of people that we were working with, usually in trading, people would say, all right, let me take my money out of that thing and I'm going to go put it somewhere else. And we were super fortunate that everybody kind of kept their money in. And we said, well, what are we going to do with this? So we ended up doing a bunch of dumb things that 20-somethings today would be very different and smarter about it than we were at the time. But as we started to do more and more, what we saw is this started to rhyme with that. And this looked a little bit like that part of that business. So even though they weren't exactly the same businesses, they weren't trading businesses again, we saw the pieces of the trading business, like our operational excellence was superior. And so if we could pull that skill out and apply it elsewhere versus it had to be exactly the same thing over and over again. Right? Very often you just see a trading firm do one trading product and then they go to another product and another product. They might start with outside money, but if they didn't, then they'll raise outside money, right? It's very programmatic. We look very different than that. And at its core, we're very good at managing risk, in particular in the equity options market. But at a higher level, we're really good at operating a company. And that's what we started to see about ourselves. So we started to do more of that and try more of that, even if it didn't make complete sense and it might be in a different industry. And like we fell flat on our face in many cases, but each one of those we're like, okay, we learned, okay, now we don't go there. Or if we do go there, how do we do that differently? So the beauty of having that excess cash in the early days, I talk about something, like compound interest. We all want our interest and our principals to compound. And then it becomes exponential growth over time if you do that. Those experiences I had really young in my 20s, they compounded very quickly. So I was really lucky to be part of starting a department in my mid-20s, like I said, and then starting a company and then having some failures, having one success and having several failures. And all of those experiences compound on each other. So I had a lot of growth as early as I can. It's playing a lot of hands, right? And if you can manage your losses, which coming from options trading, again, one of the things we're really good at is keeping our losses small. So even though we have had a lot of failures, each one of those was sort of critical to the next big win, right? And to opening our range for success on the upside.
I love that. I want to make this super crystal clear for people because PEAK6 is, to keep it simple, 25 years old. Mm-hmm. And you've acquired many businesses along the way. And as you said, one rhymed with the other and there wasn't a perfect playbook. But one of your most successful moves was acquiring and scaling Apex Fintech Solutions. Talk a little bit about that decision and what happened there.
That's a good one. We always say, someday someone will make a movie about it because they should. So I'll just back us up a little bit. Our third company that we actually started ourselves was called Options House. And it was, think pre-generation Robinhood. And Trade King, Trade Monster, Zogo. These were some of the other firms that were around at the time.
I remember.
So we were building Options House and our back-end technology. So everything after the trade is made goes to your clearing firm, your custodial firm. And we were using a firm called Penson. And they were a public company at the time. And we knew them actually because we had a hedge fund at the time. And we owned the convertible bonds in their stock. And we got a call on a Friday. This was in April of 2012 from the CEO. And if your bank calls and asks to borrow money from you, that's probably a problem, right? So they're holding our assets and they need to borrow money. And he had talked to my co-founder and he said, well, I don't think so, but I'm going to talk to Jenny, we'll get back to you on Monday. Well, the SEC ended up calling us on Monday and there was fraud there. So it's a crazy story, actually, and you can dig in and find it online. But the SEC basically said, we need $70 million by Friday. And it was Monday. Or, right, all the firms like ourselves at that time, Schwab and Fidelity, the big guys at the time, there's a whole bunch of these middle tier broker dealers, and we're going to go up in flames. And by the way, all these customers, these millions of customers who are sitting there, right? Nobody knows that this all happened. So we're thinking, this is 2012, we started in 1997, $70 million. I mean, it's still a hell of a lot of money. And we're going to do this. Wait, why isn't everybody doing this? Why isn't this some kind of consortium? What is it about us? And we had already been tens of millions of dollars. We had taken that excess money from trading. We self-funded everything we've done. So we're tens of millions of dollars into Options House already. And so either we let that go up in smoke, or we do this deal. And 13 days later, actually, we close that deal. So when we got in there, it was, as you can imagine, a complete mess. But the interesting thing was, it was an opportunity for us as Options House to now say, okay, what did we as a customer of Penson, what did we want them to be doing? And at the time, technology was really starting to change. And so we put our heads down, and for 2 years, we started changing the technology for our customers. So we became the first electronic account opening. So Robinhood, Wealthfront, Betterment, when they came around 2 years later, we were the only ones out there that were able to do it. So essentially, the majority of all these fintechs on the retail side that have come now through Apex Fintech Solutions.
That's amazing. As you've scaled Apex dramatically into a major fintech player, currently managing back-end trading and technology firms for giants, as you said, SoFi, Turo, Webull, and many others, how do you think about the next generation of fintech as someone who was to the party very early, a major player and a driving player? If we fast forward, what do you see?
I think the really interesting thing is how, I like to talk about front, middle, and back office. Many years ago, the middle office was a really important separate part because we couldn't do all these things all together in a really condensed fashion. And a lot of that middle office has come out, and it's like sort of the front and back are really quickly together because tech has come so far. So I think there's, again, exponential growth opportunities here for all these other places where our assets are. So think insurance, think real estate, think banking, right? How we shouldn't have to be in so many different places, even if we have different institutions where we have this product from, on how we interact with our money and our assets and our liabilities every single day. I think it had to be the way it's been for a very long time with however many apps you might have today for all your different products. And I think ease of use for the consumer is going to dramatically change. There's one other big thing that we're working on at Apex right now, which I think is super exciting, will also change the fintech industry. So if you think about how many people, particularly in the US, let's talk about, own stock. And the numbers would probably be around 60-ish%. But the majority of that is passively through funds and indexes.
Yep.
And the opportunity, we believe, for people to change their destiny is really to understand what it means to invest. Obviously, to start much earlier. And Apex is working on trying to figure out how to do that, right? Financial education, we have an app called Zogo that we've been working on in a B2B way and a direct-to-consumer way. We will also know the struggles people have had. You know this so well through LearnVest, obviously. Why is this still a problem for our high schools and everywhere else? So one of the interesting things that Apex is doing and actually has a patent on is stock rewards. And we believe that the future will be, it's not just points and airline points and I rack up some kind of credits, but the people that you buy everything from, all of the big retailers out there, all the largest public companies in the world will have stock rewards. Your kids, my kids, they grow up on Amazon. And if they don't understand a share of stock, that they could get a share of Amazon as a stock reward, or they could get, they buy Nike shoes and get Nike as a stock reward. I'm meeting the consumer where they are, and they're starting to understand the benefit early on, because why aren't they getting it today, right? Long-term wealth comes from investing, and it's a requirement that you're going to have to do that if you want to see your money grow. And we just don't understand that. The mass of our society doesn't understand it. And we are really hoping that can be true democratization if we can get a share of stock into every single person's hand.
A stock reward. Tell us what that means.
Yes. So a stock reward would be, I am a consumer. I go to Home Depot. I mean, none of them are doing this today. Well, there is some places like Stash is a good example where stock rewards do happen, but I'm talking about the corporate entity, right? I shop at Home Depot. Every time I go in, I earn some points towards some rewards. In the future, I want to earn stock as my reward. If I get cash back, I want to get stock back. And the reason we can do this today is because fractional shares exist. Apex was the one who created fractional shares, the first one to bring that to market through its B2B customers. And it might be a very small amount that I'm getting, but over time it will build. And as we all know, that longer term investing that all consumers need to do, we need to teach them, and they can do that. Why do I have to have airline miles? Why don't I have Delta stock? What we know is from the research, we haven't done this research, but other people have done this research, basically says the increase in consumer loyalty is like 100% in 3 to 6 months, very short order, because they start to understand what they're doing. They start to understand that I like this stock. I understand this stock is now going to work for me if I continue to go back to that place that I love so much. So the loyalty is just huge for these stock rewards. And now it can be done so simply. So I think once it takes off, we're really optimistic about one of the first players who might actually do it. And then also working with some of the exchanges to have it just be on the shelf is just another part of the reward and loyalty system for any company.
That's amazing, Jenny. Yeah. On a different day, I'll tell you I almost dropped out of Harvard undergrad to start a company that did exactly that. We marched with our wallet. So why is that not intuitively paying me back?
Intuitively right there. Right. Obviously, you can go to an app and go buy Apple stock. But for people who aren't comfortable buying stock, it's somehow so different. And so this is how we're going to introduce people, and it's going to change their lives. If you look at the numbers, like even if we had done it in the last 5 years, we obviously know what the markets have done. It would have changed, individual households over the last 5 years. Incredible amount.
Jenny, again, you and I are total kindred spirits here. You started Poker Power with your daughter because you want people to understand taking risk. Where do you think you intuitively learned to get good at risk? And you even said early days of PEAK6, you were excellent at risk management. What does that mean?
Yeah. I don't know that I intuitively had it as a youngster growing up, but the beauty of learning options trading, right, is you trade every second of every day. So it was my job to learn how to take risk, which is the first part, which is I'm actually putting money at risk. And then also the beauty of where we grew up, O'Connor and Associates, which is one of the most famous options trading firms in the world before they were taking over. They taught us also how to manage the downside. And we don't have 27 years of never having a losing year in trading if we weren't taught by some of the best. And we're super fortunate to have been in that situation today. But we also lose a lot. When we trade every single day, on average, we win like 54, 55% of the time. So that's a lot of losing, which is why I love poker so much. Hand after hand after hand, winning every hand. But where else are we practicing taking risk? By the way, we don't play at Poker Power for money at all. You start by doing it with no money. And eventually, every time you spend money, technically, every single day, you're taking risks every single day. We just don't categorize it that way, especially as females. But that's why doing this uncomfortable thing called poker, right, has really made men super comfortable at very young ages, taking those risks over and over again because they are doing it at 10 and 12 and 14. And by the time they're in that first job at work and they don't know how to do that next job and they'll do it with 60% confidence and the woman has to wait till they're 90+% confidence. Well, of course, it's not that the woman can't do it. It's just that he's likely had a lot more experience in his play, in his hobbies, and whatever work he might have done in taking risks. So for us, it's practice just like anything else. And so for me, when I started, I got the practice through trading. Now, I don't expect all these women to necessarily go into trading, though we're working hard at doing it over here. But how else are you going to do it? And when I saw poker, which ironically I didn't play because I was like, that's gross and a boys thing and a complete waste of time. It wasn't until 2019, because of my daughter, that I actually learned the game. And then when I started seeing the game, I was like, hold on. And by the way, I wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for it, because I'd always said, I'm options trading and back-end technology. It's like so not relatable. And when I saw poker, I was like, this is my work. This is that negotiation I just did. This is that deal we just did. And obviously it looks like trading, but the bells, whistles, they all went off and I knew we were onto something. So I had to go from being a quiet person for 24 years to being out in the public. But fortunately, it's also fun to meet people like yourself.
And you're fabulous at it. And we'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. Alexa here. Not only do I get the opportunity to speak with all types of founders on the Inc. Founders Project podcast, I'm also a founder myself. I believe that when the world zigs, you have to zag. So in 2008, when the entire world was in free fall during the global financial crisis, I decided to drop out of business school to solve a problem I couldn't get out of my head. LearnVest was born, and I set out on my fundraising journey to build the first digital financial manager accessible to the masses. I can't stress enough how vital fundraising is to a startup and how many no's I had to endure. Carta knows this and had founders in mind when they created their fundraising suite, providing tools and support to take the friction out of fundraising and saving founders time and money, allowing founders to focus on their goals, not the admin work needed to close a round. From simply issuing safes to quickly receiving funds, Carta's fundraising suite helps their cap table customers raise a better fundraising round. To learn more or to get started, go to carta.com/fundraise. That's carta.com/fundraise.
The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Join for free today to get access to interior design services to help you make the most of your workspace, and employee well-being benefits that will help you and your people grow, as well as amazing discounts on travel, insurance, IKEA purchases, deliveries, and more. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for the IKEA Business Network for free today at IKEA.com.
Jenny, I want to transition to you. I want to say this again because it's really crazy. You are one of 23 self-made female billionaires in the United States. Self-made multi-billionaire. And you grew up in Wisconsin. And I want to just go back to your childhood. I know you have, I believe, 4 brothers. I have 2. That's crazy. 4 is double what I endured. So I'm already impressed. If there's something in your childhood that you almost draw a straight line to your success today, what would it be?
I think there's probably 2 things. One for sure is having 4 brothers. When I came out of school, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I worked on the Chicago Board of Options Exchange trading floor. All men, there's a handful of women that are actually down there at the time. What does that mean exactly? I think there weren't barriers. I didn't see barriers because I grew up in that scenario. So it wasn't by definition a barrier. Everybody else is learning. Why don't I just learn? Like, why wouldn't I learn? And why is it a male thing? Like, it just didn't even cross my mind. So I think I was super lucky to have my brothers, but also to live in that environment. Of course, I wish for sisters my whole life. And fortunately, I have amazing friends from high school and college. So that did come true in a different way. But I would say the other thing, definitely from my childhood, is so there are 5 kids. My mom, she never sits down, right? She worked her ass off. And my dad, his famous saying was every day's a work day. He was a doctor. And I think their combined work ethic, ultimately at the end of the day, was for sure a difference maker. We'll never truly know, right? Why my co-founder and I came together. He had a really strong mom and sister. And so for him to be comfortable having a female as a partner in trading in 1997, like that's kind of crazy as well. So I think these confluence of events, but at the end of the day, we always say we've done lots of experiments over the years in our business. It used to be the mathematicians, right? It used to be those quant elites, but that's not what we built, right? The way we describe our trading engine, and this is from many years ago, is an inventory management system. So we just solved the problem differently than other people had done it at the time. And honestly, it was a real 50-50 split, but my contribution there was thinking about it different than all the men before me. So my childhood was super important to sticking it out and figuring out how to solve the problem versus saying, I just know the problem. And that's what my dad did. That's what my mom did.
I love that so much. Every day is a work day.
Yeah.
It's funny. I also was raised by a doctor dad and a mom who literally never sat still. I want to transition a little bit to you're nearly 30 years in. Okay. Let's just call it 30.
Okay.
To your journey of PEAK6, which is just 3 decades. I mean, a long time. What keeps you motivated? What keeps you on the edge? What keeps you looking forward?
People ask that a lot. I don't know if they're trying to get me out or what, but I mean, I don't know what else we would do. We have 4 kids, and 6 years into PEAK6, my co-founder and I got married. So we were not married when we started. We had known each other for 10 years before. So that was an interesting twist. But I think the next challenge is always super intriguing to us. We're super curious people. We have the benefit, versus traditional operating companies. So people think of us as investors, but we think of ourselves as operators. So we operate a trading company. We operate Apex Fintech Solutions, and we built other operating companies in the insurtech space right now. We're really curious to see how we're not done. We just, we talked about financial education. We talked about democratizing, but we're not done. And I think I want to see if we can change the world, right? When we started Poker Power, that wasn't meant to be a company, for God's sake. I was just playing poker with my daughter and her friends. But I said, what if half the poker players in the world were women? How would the world be different? And I always knew, at least for me personally, that I have an obligation to bring women into this industry, into finance and tech. And then the final piece is the people. Like, we're super lucky. A lot of people have been at PEAK6 a really long time. Some of my partners have recently retired, but from the very beginning, and anybody give an arm and a leg to work with them if they could.
That's amazing. I'm going to move to the quick fire round, Jenny. First thing that comes to your head. What is an interview question you love to ask people?
Oh, gosh. Well, I hate to state the obvious, but do you play poker? Because it has become so interesting to me now, and especially for women. Because if I don't ask, I mean, it's weird if I don't ask, but also their story about why and how they see it, right? It becomes eye-opening for me about how they think about risk and what sort of level they are in their strategic thinking.
I love it. What is a quote or a motto that you really live by?
Oh, gosh. Well, definitely every day's a work day. I already said that because of my dad. He recently passed. So it's at the forefront of my mind. In this day and age, people can somehow take that negatively. But I think it's about being productive. It's not necessarily about your work, right? There's the true chemical reaction from being productive, whether the outcome is good or bad, but by doing and trying and compounding those experiences.
I agree with everything you just said to my core. What is the biggest pinch me moment to date in your career?
Probably early on, it was sort of some dollar amount, right? But I think now it's trying to apply what we do elsewhere and it working or not working. But whether it's my family or it's someone else we're working with, to see appreciation. We're hardest on ourselves, but I think seeing appreciation for the risk taking that we've done, right? And that someone actually wants to emulate something we've done because we did it in our own bubble. Who knows what would happen if we hadn't self-funded? But you actually aren't getting all that great guidance from elsewhere. So we created these philosophies and systems and things all ourselves. And now, of course, we eventually hire more people and they bring that stuff from everywhere else. But I think that's been particularly interesting as of late as we've become more public and even for trading firms, frankly, to see what we've done. And we've done it so differently than they have done, or the history, how those trading firms have written their stories. We're so different from that. So I'm really proud of the team.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Last question, a book that's changed your life, that's had a big impact on you, any type of book.
I love stories, but I definitely am a big business book reader, and my kids and my husband tell me I shouldn't be for all kinds of reasons. that I should also read fiction in there too. So I'm encouraging people to do that if you don't do it, because I don't do it enough. But Team of Teams, I really love that story. I also loved it because when I listened to it, my kids were in the car, and it's really made to help teams be better. But the stories are, just what they do in this world for us made me proud as a human to be part of it, but also that my kids were inspired by it, while I was also inspired on how to think about our own teams. I think it always sticks, and I always pull it back out and read it again. And there's just some really unique stories inside of there. It's a bunch of stories. So
I love it. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us today. You are somebody I am in awe of, and I'm just so grateful that the engine in you does not stop. You are continuing to do great work for this world. Everybody out there, you can check out PEAK6 at PEAK6.com. That is PEAK6.com. And you can also go to pokerpower.com, download the app. You have to play. I have learned to love playing because of Jenny. And you can join us next week for a new episode of For Starters with Alexa Von Tobel. Jenny, we're rooting for you in every way. Thank you so much.